Minesh-Shaytanir-Rajim. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Assalamualaikum. Ji ayanu bukhair agale ni hao chunashumme washmale. Ohio Gonzaimas, Guten Morgen, Hola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifahal. Hale Shumachatore, Ahlan Masal, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabi, Mhalli Kare Aya, Hosh Galden, Anayasayo, Huya Mora, Adab, Shivato, and Kalimera. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in to PTV World. You're certainly watching World this morning. With me, I'm very lucky to have been joined by my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Haja Sati. I happen to be Shahzad Hasan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to get started with us. But first things first, hello Haja, how are you doing today?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Shahzad, for introducing me. Jazakallah khair. Shahzad, so, I told you about a course that I'm taking, and I read a really interesting book which was about why loiters. So loitering is a thing that is associated with the, when you're randomly wandering around, stuff like that. But it was a very feminist exploration of how, you need to explore the spaces. And when we talk about spaces, it's also linked with the time. And it mentions about how there are lots of spaces that are actually restricted for the women because it is not deemed safe for them. And they actually mention about how, for example, when the media is reporting on the cases where women were harassed or with some sort of, ugly incident happened. But then again, coming back to the point in that book was that how it's also very discouraging for women because when the security issues are created, it further restricts their spaces because obviously honor is something which is very intricately valued that is held by our own houses. But I do remember, for example, when I talked about the loitering, that when my brother was young, and especially it happens with the boys when they're in their adolescence age, so they're away from the nights all the day, and then they ask one sister, "Yaar, Baji, please, mera darwaza khol dena. Ammi, ammu ko na batana." In general, the study in that book explained that how women also need to reclaim those spaces back. But in general, I do believe that the nights are for the rest and the days are for the work. So I think with the technology and whatnot, we have developed very wrong sort of habits, where we are waking all the night and then we are sleeping all the day. This is very against the nature, not nature friendly, and we can see because of these lifestyle changes how it is impacting us.
And it just very recently happened to me too as well, Haja. So imagine that, a couple of my friends were visiting from Lahore and Karachi. Both of them happened to be film directors. They were staying at my place, and then
some offers coming
so we were working together on a project. So I told my wife that, hey, you know what, we're going to get late because of work. So please make sure that you open the door because Dad actually locks the doors every night before sleeping. So imagine that, so I told her that I'll be back at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, but I got back home at 6 in the morning, which she wasn't really very happy about, so she locked us out. and then it was quite a struggle. But having said that...
So why didn't you have a spare key? It's your house.
No, they don't give me a spare key. They don't trust me with the spare
key
as well.
Because
I've lost a lot of keys as well. But having said that, just yesterday, it's a beautiful thing where you said that, that the women really need to go out and, capture all of those spaces over again. But imagine whether for men or women, our religion tells us that if you do not have any sort of work to go outside, please make sure that you stay at your homes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what our religion tells us. But having said that, there was one more thing which I wanted to add on over here. So imagine in life, Haja, when we read books, when we make sure that we're going to stay fit, that means that we are working on ourselves. Now, there are people who will work hard right now, at their jobs. So what happens is that with working hard on your job, ladies and gentlemen, you can get, you can make sure that your ends are going to meet, that you will be able to pay your bills and fee and whatnot. But imagine that for people who work on themselves, ladies and gentlemen, success comes and meet them as well. So please make sure that each and every single individual who's out there start working on yourself. I'm not saying that you do not work hard on your job, but you really need to work hard on yourself. Make sure that you are every single day a better version of yourself, and you will see that things will get better. I've seen that for myself. Haja has seen that for herself as well. And we have a gentleman who's actually seen it for himself as well. But before we move on to him, ladies and gentlemen, time now for the top stories. Haja, what do we have in the box?
So yes, annual meeting of the World Economic Forum is underway at Davos. Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto represents Pakistan at the forum. Bilawal will be accompanied by the Minister of the State for Foreign Affairs, Hina Rabbani Kar. The Foreign Minister will share Pakistan's perspective of economic and social impact of the evolving geopolitical realities and the challenges for the region's security and stability. He will highlight the developing world's perspective on issues of climate change, food and energy security, and social vulnerabilities in the times of high inflation and slowing the economic activity. Foreign Minister and the Minister of State will also meet participating dignitaries, including political leaders, corporate executives, head of the international organizations, and leading media and civil society personalities. So for quite some time, I think our state is focusing on the fact that all of these World Bank, IMF, the financial infrastructure that was made after the World War II reflects the realities of the World War II, not exactly the realities of 21st century, which is the climate change. So, for example, Pakistan suffered $40 billion of economic losses because of this climate change, because of these floods. And obviously, we are already, a weaker country in terms of the economic resources. So, we have to invest a lot in making sure that the people who are climately vulnerable, they are protected. So, $40 billion state has to shoulder this burden in order to make sure that the human security is our top priority, right? But IMF and the World Bank, they believe on the austerity measures and they do not give much thought on that. So I think there is a need to talk about it, and there's a need to rethink the structures of these institutions, because obviously climate change is a reality.
Haja, thank you very much for making this point. I believe that it's a really valid point, and it's because of the fact that it's not just us, ladies and gentlemen. So today it must be us that, who are actually vulnerable to climate change. It can be anybody, anywhere, at any given point of time as well. So please make sure that if today you're not going to think about people of Pakistan, God forbid, I think karma is not really a good thing. We do not want anybody to go through the same pain which Pakistan had to suffer from. So for all of these organizations which are out there, these foundations which are out there, you really need to make sure that you come up with a better strategy so that the people who are vulnerable are no more vulnerable, and we plan on a way or on a basis where unfortunately or fortunately we are no more vulnerable to such climate changes as well. But moving on.
And speaking of vulnerability, obviously when we talk about the vulnerability, there are a lot of minority groups that are vulnerable to the state incursions and the
just
state
across
powers.
the border.
Right. So Muslims are facing more wide discrimination and prejudice under the Narendra Modi-led government in India, and now another historical mosque has been bulldozed in northern state of Uttar Pradesh. The latest incident occurred on the heels of the campaign launched by Hindutva-inspired ruling party to claim the Mughal-era monuments and remove historic mosques to gag Muslims in a desperate attempt to claim the next general election scheduled next year. Clips doing rounds on the internet shows Shahi Masjid in Handia, Allahabad being bulldozed by the Public Works Department under the pretext of widening the highway. The demolished mosque, reportedly constructed during 16th century, occurred in the Uttar Pradesh, home to 20% Muslim population in India. It was demolished in the guise of construction work, triggering anger and anguish among Muslims and human rights activists. And obviously, when we say that it was built in 16th century, obviously that was also not just a mosque, a place for the worship, but also it has a very historical significance because it was that much old, and it has an architecture, Mughal architecture. But unfortunately, we see how identities are playing out in a very polarized world, where the populism is on the rise, where we see the right-wing leaders and the fanatic leaders who are calling for a very exclusive version of what community is, and that is what is happening in India.
Exactly, and Haja, which is why, I believe that, when we speak about leaders or global leaders as well, I think Narendra Modi cannot even be a leader, and it is because of the fact that a leader is responsible for each and every individual within that country or premises as well. So imagine if that's how you're going to play with things. Unfortunately, I don't see a very bright future for the India or the people living in India as well, because that's not going to get you a lot of respect from the world over as well. I mean, we have seen people living in harmony. We've seen people coexisting as well. You go to Canada, you go to USA, you go to all the bigger countries. We do not have such issues over there. But with Narendra Modi, I think that he does not really have that vision to be a leader, unfortunately, even for India too as well. And people from within the India are actually against Narendra Modi as well. But having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we really need to not spend a lot of time on such an ignorant. We're speaking about Narendra Modi Sahab as well, but need to come down to Pakistan, where the Election Commission of Pakistan released the final consolidated results of 170 out of 235 Union Councils of Karachi Division. Pakistan People's Party is leading with 80 Union Council seats, followed by Jamaat-e-Islami, which has won 49 seats so far. PTI has won 29 seats, PMLN 6 seats. Jamiat-e-Ulema-e-Islam and independent candidates won 2 seats each, whereas Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan has achieved 1 seat. According to the unofficial results, the Pakistan People's Party has swept the local government elections in all the 9 districts of Hyderabad division. Wow, what a change.
Well, obviously, when we are holding the local bodies elections, that means this is a very essential component of democracy, and democracy cannot flourish without the local government elections. And this is what we see happening. And speaking of which, obviously, democracy is also designed so that the masses can be benefited, right? And when we talk about the human security, when we talk about investing on people, it is not just the people who are within the country. Also, we are talking about the diaspora, which is living abroad, and how they are contributing to our own country's investment, how they're contributing not just in the monetary terms, in the financial terms, but in the terms of technology transfer, in the terms of trainings, and how they can benefit Pakistan. And Pakistan has, by the way, a very influential diaspora in the West. They're also there in the Middle East. They're contributing a lot, and Pakistan's GDPs or the remittances are major contribution by the Pakistani diaspora.
And, having said that, there's one more point which I wanted to make today, and that was that imagine that, for all of those people, we talk about the expats. Ladies and gentlemen, they work day in, day out. They work really hard. They save a lot of money. They certainly do not have the same lifestyle we have over here. The majority of the population I'm talking about. So imagine what they do is that they might not eat a complete or a full bread. What they'll do is that they'll eat half a bread, save half for the next one as well. And then what happens is that they send back all of that money to their country. And imagine what do you think that we're doing over here? We're driving Land Cruisers. We utilizing all of those dollars for our benefit, but we certainly do not think about the amount of hard work they've been putting in. We certainly, from top to bottom, really need to consider over here whether what use are we going to make of that dollar bill which will be sent by expat Pakistanis over here in order to make sure that our country is going to prosper as well. Having said that, Haja, I know that you have a point over here. I would want to introduce this amazing, wonderful guest over here because of the fact that, ladies and gentlemen, whenever we talk about expat communities or overseas Pakistanis, they've always been out there for the country, and they will be out there. They are the most important pillar of our economy if we are to talk about it, ladies and gentlemen. Today we will specifically be talking about Lithuania as well and its economy and how they can contribute in different areas. And I'm very lucky. I'm delighted, in fact, that I saw him today because it's been a long time that he's been on the show in the first place. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, we have been very lucky that we've been joined by ex-Vice Chairman, Board of Governors, Overseas Pakistanis Foundation, the Honorable Consul General of the Republic of Lithuania, Mr. Masood Khan. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shahzad and Hajra. It was excellent to be with your show all the time. I have been here.
Sir, it's an
honor.
Some of my experience with you, living abroad and.
Yeah, I think most of your life you have been living abroad. Every time you are here, you tell me that you were abroad, and yet here you are without chocolates, anything.
I'm very sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
Okay, so Lithuania. So what about Lithuania? Please describe the demographics of the Lithuania, because when we were having the conversation behind the camera lens, our worthy guest mentioned here is that it's a very developed country, right? It has a small population.
And people might not even know about it.
True. So it has been in the news because of the other things, because it's a part of the European Union, but we would like to explore the demographics of that and how Pakistani diaspora, the demographics of Pakistani diaspora and how it can contribute to Pakistan.
So take us to Europe, sir.
Actually, my relation with Lithuania is because I have been living in Scandinavia. I have my business set up there. I was in aviation business for many years.
Okay.
And in 90, when the Soviet Union was split, so all these countries came up. And it's, by the way, Lithuania was the first country to announce the independence.
Wow. Okay.
They come out on the street. They have a very small population of 2.7 million, and they, in the cold, they hold hand to hand and came out and stand. Gorbachev came, fly back to Vilnius, requesting them, don't split, but they said enough is enough. You have taken over this part of the world. In 1945, we were independent all the time. We like to be independent.
Okay.
So this is the break which break the whole Soviet Union into 15 countries.
True.
Right.
And the good part at that time was when I gone first time, because I was in Copenhagen, so it's only a Baltic Sea in between.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's only 1 hour flight to. We were not allowed to go for 1 hour flight from Copenhagen because it was Soviet Union.
Oh, yeah.
But when it became an independent country, we start flying to that. And luckily, I was involved in building up their airline because I was one of the men involved in many airlines. So I built up their airline.
Okay.
And that is how I can come in contact with the foreign minister and president and prime minister and And then they offer me to represent them in the president of Lithuania to the president of Pakistan in Pakistan.
Right.
So this is how I landed in Pakistan.
Wow. So you, sir, I mean, it's amazing that a Pakistani over here is representing them as well. I think it's wonderful. You happen to be the Honorable Consul General. But sir, having said that, let's explore a little more, because we go out in 47 different countries. I'm not sure whether we go out in Lithuania or not. But while we speak about Lithuania, you know, let's talk about their economy. What is it totally dependent on? Is it more of technology? Is it more of education? Is it more of tourism? Let's talk about that a little.
But actually, I like that people should learn. And it is a example state, you know, because I, being an engineer myself, I realize that how people have transformed the export into the, you know, technology today.
Right.
Lithuania is one of the highest developed country in the European Union.
Wow.
Yeah, it sounds very strange to you.
Why is it that we never
But
heard about
you know,
it? I
that
mean, it's our ignorance,
because
but
it is
yes.
so small, 2.7 million, less than Islamabad.
True.
So
Everybody
but
knows everybody.
it is one country with a flag and with a national flag, and they have a very, very long history.
Wow.
Thousands of years.
True.
And you know, they are one of the leading 3 countries in the world in biotechnology. Are 3 countries in the world which leading today is France, United States, and Lithuania.
Right.
Wow.
And
Can
so
you imagine?
wonderful.
Where is United States, where is France, and where is small Lithuania?
Yeah.
True.
And I just to narrate you a story, you know, our ambassador came here to give the credential to the President Zardari. He was president that time.
Okay.
And you know, he has also not heard Lithuania. So he said, he knows me little bit because of our some private relations. So he said, ये Lithuania में लोग क्या करते हैं? क्या है? मैं कहा जी बड़े smart लोग हैं.
Okay.
And then he asked the ambassador, Ambassador, what is the population of Lithuania? That was a very bad question because he was very shy. He said, sir, it's a very small country, Excellency. It's only 3 million. He actually said 3 million. So he, President smiled sarcastically, 3 million. You know, it's a small village in Pakistan. तो उसके बाद उसने कहा कि but what is your economy, what is your export? And he said $55 billion.
Oh, wonderful.
For 2.7 million people.
$55 billion.
Everybody's living a happy life in
President
Lithuania.
gets shock.
Right.
You know, so you can understand how a small nation can generate.
And this also brings into the focus how much important the population or the family planning is, because obviously when we talk about it, I think one of the biggest problem of Pakistan is the population growth. And so we are such a huge country in terms of the population that we are not able to invest in each and every person of our country, right?
That is the problem.
That is the
Nahi, sir, I think I would want to disagree away. I think it's the belief system we have. I mean, everybody comes on with their own risk.
But
yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree. That is not, I mean, what Hajra is saying
yes.
is also correct.
True.
You know, when Pakistan was born in 1947, we were 30 million.
Then.
We were 30 million, West Pakistan.
True.
True.
It is 40 million was East Pakistan. So it was 30 million. From 30 million to we have gone to 230 million today.
True.
True.
And you know, it's not, Allah Miyan ne arrange kiya hua rizq uska aayega saath uske, but still
But
you
sir,
have to
that's
plan.
not-
Now, I just to add that one point. In 1967, your population and Spain population was same,
Yeah.
67
50,
years.
60, 55, 60 billion.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know where Spain is today and where you are today.
But sir, it's our, I believe that it's our inefficiency that we're not able to utilize that human resource. It's a capital in itself.
But let me add what I said.
Right.
You know, in the time of Mughals, people were literate, almost 60%, 67% literate people in India, in Mughal Empire's time. You know what happened from 47 to today is that Shahzad has 2 children.
3.
3 alhamdulillah.
3, mashallah.
Looking forward
mashallah.
for one more.
Mashallah, mashallah. And you know, when I came to Pakistan, me and my wife, I in the aircraft, we decided, me and my wife, when we'll go to Pakistan, we'll try to give education to our servants' children.
MashaAllah.
Okay, wonderful.
Free of charge. Every child will look after them as our own children. We came, Yusuf, driver, I said, Yusuf, कितने बच्चे हैं? कहते हैं जी 6.
MashaAllah.
7वां आने वाला है.
Right.
तो मैंने कहा कि how many are going to school? कहते हैं सर स्कूल जाके क्या करेंगे?
True, true. This is the thinking.
You know, this
of
is the way he thinks.
Right.
True.
He said, आप उसे मैट्रिक करा देंगे, he will not be my son. He think I am an officer, नौकरी उसे मिलेगी नहीं. And that is the tragedy. The population growth is in the low income area.
True.
And that is my problem. My problem is not,
That's
I
true.
agree
and,
with you.
And you've hit the nail on the head, sir, you
Yeah.
know, because I believe that, you know, they take it as a recreation. I'm very sorry, but I think that's how it is for them as well, unfortunately, and they don't think like that. I think what they want is not just over here in Pakistan, for all those people from Pakistan, a majority of the people over there, when they go to Canada, when they know they live in a welfare country or welfare state, what they do is they reproduce most of the time so that they can get more dollar bills or more hands to earn.
Actually,
that's very unfortunate. But let's go back to Lithuania
Yes,
very
yes.
quickly. So is it, you know, because that's where we started from, and that's where Hajar said that, you know, it's all about, you know, how, you know, there was family planning and whatnot. So do you think that it was a concerted effort of the Lithuanian government to make sure that we're not going to increase our population many
No, no, no. It's not the question of increased population. The population was
just
about
like that.
that, you know, for many, many years. The Western
and the literacy
culture,
rate
yeah,
must probably be around 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Western culture is that the population is on negative.
True.
If you go to Germany, Scandinavia, you will be surprised the schools are going to close down because there's no children for the schools.
Yeah, okay.
So, you know, if the foreign students will not go into the universities in Germany and Scandinavia and England, they don't have enough children of their own to go to so many universities.
True.
It's all filled by the foreigners today.
True.
Even the jails are shutting down, the police stations are shutting down. I think it's beautiful.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And obviously it has its own negative impact because now they have to import people in terms of the skilled
Now,
labor.
it is a positivity for Pakistan.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm
opportunity
coming
for
back
us.
to
The
you.
capital of human resource.
Capital of human resource. You took it exactly the word I want to say.
Right.
The problem is that, unfortunately, I was the first Pakistani in about 12 years ago. President Musharraf put me on the board of OPF because I used to talk about overseas Pakistanis.
Wonderful.
And I used to talk about the success stories of overseas Pakistani.
Okay.
You go to America, Canada, Europe, and find out somebody in a multi-company's top. So you will find out some Pakistani Indian or some Asian sitting there. Amazing.
Amazing.
And so I was very aggressive and say that Pakistani should get it right. I was one of the instrument to get the foundation made. I was instrument that the Ministry for Overseas Pakistani was created. I was one of the vocal fighter for that for many, many years. And then you can see that one of the biggest potential Pakistan has is young youth.
So how do you think that we can certainly utilize this capital now for the betterment of the country's economy?
I have said a report long ago where I said I don't want BAs, MAs, FAs.
Okay.
What do you want?
I want technical knowledge today.
MBAs,
Engineers,
I think.
You know,
IT, software,
IT, engineer,
artificial
technician,
intelligence.
plumber, electrician, camera operators, everything, something to do
Equipped with
with
skill set.
Yeah, skill. Unfortunately, 75–80% of our overseas Pakistani abroad are totally laborers.
Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Especially in Middle East.
Middle East, Europe maybe,
Yeah.
even in America,
I mean,
Canada.
for everybody who actually went over there, sir, went as foremen in
Yeah.
an industry or somewhere.
Yeah, that is good. For
Exactly.
He's gone foreman. You see, a labor is earning 10. If you get skill, you get to 40 immediately.
Okay.
Wow.
And if you are an executive, you go to 100. So what is the difference, you know?
Quite a lot.
So this 32 billion which they used to send, I can see it can convert it to 100 billion very easily. If we should realize that we need to send technician, train them like Philippines, give them an education on Pakistan, you have to keep Pakistan flag on.
True.
Don't do any criminal thing because that put Pakistan down.
True.
So this training is needed before they go abroad, and they should be properly trained.
But now, sir, we do see a little change in the mindset as well. You know, for people, I mean, we have seen families that, you know, it's their fourth generation overseas, you know, or third generation. Usually, that's what we have seen. Now, the mindset is changing, you know, not talking in perspective of how the governments are actually connecting with each other, but how individuals are these days. So imagine, you know, when the first generation went from Pakistan to abroad, what they would do is they send back money home to their brothers, sisters, khalas, mamus and chachus. And once they would want to retire, come back, they won't have anything left because, you know, everything's gone by far. Now, what I've seen is that there's been, because, you know, this problem has been around for so long with overseas Pakistanis, now they say that, you know, it's the fourth generation over here. Our children do not even know how to speak Urdu or Punjabi for that matter.
Right.
Why do we even have to go back? So why not invest in the same country that we've been living in, because it's our fourth generation already
you are
here.
absolutely right. You
So
are
then
very,
what do we do about
no,
it?
No, but you are very right. That will happen. That is the phenomena.
Yeah.
If you see in the First World War, people have moved from Europe to America, Canada.
True.
True.
But they are now American.
True.
In the beginning, they say, I am Italian American. Now they said, I am American.
yeah.
And they
Ab
said,
bachche
the
bhi
time
American
has
hi lag rahe
changed. Or, you know, their name is like that. They forgot. They don't even know the roots.
True.
That phenomena will happen. But in the present, you know, we have at least 72% of our labor in those countries where they have no legal rights.
True.
I don't want to name it.
Yeah.
You understand what
They
I
cannot
mean.
buy anything.
Yeah. No, no.
Yeah.
They have not
No, no,
legal
legal
right,
terms, yeah.
legal right
Yeah, yeah.
for immigration.
Okay.
You know, they can go there as a guest worker
True.
and they will return back.
True.
True.
And 80% of the money coming from there.
Right.
You must realize that. You know, those people who are living in Europe, fourth generation, they are not sending money.
True.
The money is coming from that
there,
area.
where they do not have any legal right.
You know, and that is unfortunate. But having said that, even in Europe today, there is so much shortage of professionals. And I have been talking on this subject for long. Forget about the labor. Europe need professionals.
True.
Their population has gone down. They need doctors, they need nurses, they need engineers, they need ITs. They need people in every field and very highly paid.
True.
So please work on that and send a professional to them. They will be asset for Pakistan one day also.
And let's ruminate over, sir, before we wrap this segment, one last question over is that obviously, as you mentioned, that Lithuania was a part of the Soviet Union, but then it break down and then it emerges as another separate identity as a nation state, right? So talking about it, let's tell us, because one of the reason of the breaking of the Soviet Union was because they were not investing too much in their economy, and that is why it became weaker with the advent of the war. So how did Lithuania turn the table around?
You are so correct.
Yeah.
If you are going to put all your money in defense arsenal and
What are you gonna
economy is collapsing, you will, this is a typical story of Soviet Union.
Yeah.
True.
They start bleeding. You know, when I met the president of Lithuania, I said, Excellency, you know, we have a contribution in your independence. So he got a shock. Where is Pakistan? This man is telling me that we were involved in your independence.
You've contributed, yeah.
I said, we contributed in your independence. For 1 minute, he was shocked. But then he said, how come? I said, do you know that it is Pakistani army who has make the Soviet Union bleeding in Afghanistan?
True.
And there where it is start bleeding and
crack down.
collapse,
Yeah.
economically collapse. And you got the advantage of that. And he stood up and shook hand. He said, I never realized, but that is true.
Oh, wonderful,
But
sir. And
thank you so much, sir.
thank you so much, Masood Bhai, for being with us.
And
It was
it's
lovely
very
to be in
kind of you to
conversation with
invite
you.
me. I always enjoy talking to you. Lately, I have been seeing you a lot because of my cricket and your cricket.
And you've been a great cricket fan yourself as
Yes.
well. Alhamdulillah, you've been a part of different boards all over the
Yeah.
world. I think it's wonderful. But thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you so
Thank
much.
you
It was
very much.
wonderful to see you. And everywhere, I think, alhamdulillah, for every time we meet, you know, you're representing a different country. I think that's one of the best things I've
Wonderful.
seen. I've learned from you too as well.
No, thank
May
you so
Allah
much.
give us more success, alhamdulillah, with good health as well. Thank you very much
Thank
once
you,
again.
thank you very
for,
much.
for
It's
being
really
in
pleasure
conversation.
seeing you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much,
Ajra,
sir.
thanks a lot.
Thank
You know,
you.
you have been giving me a lot of news. I know.
Thank you
Thanks
so
a lot.
much. The pleasure is all ours,
Yeah.
sir. So when we talked about, we were pontificate of the history of the Soviet Union. So, but history is best encapsulated in a physical space called museum.
True.
And how much museum shape our identity. It is said about museum that it's not just a collection of our all of the past times, but it
Contemporary
also
art.
Yeah, but also reflects how we want to see our future, right?
Exactly.
So we are going to talk about the museums and how Pakistan's Lahore Museum is one of the oldest one and how we can contribute towards it, but after a short break.
Exactly. Let's do this because, you know, when we talk about it, Haja, I think that we really need to make this point that, you know, today's creative thinkers going back to the museum and having a communication within that, bridging that gap within the museums and today's creative producers or whosoever, you know, or artisans. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the kind of conversation we're going to have. How, why, and who's going to do it? We will definitely open it up right after a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, and before going on to the break, we were talking about how museums reflects our past, our memories, and how it also reflects that how we want to see our future.
True.
And it is said about the museums that museums usually treat their visitors like their minds on the legs. So minds in terms of how they're always communicating or taking the intended messages when they're walking or strolling through the different art galleries or through the different objects that are shelved in those, what do you call, the spaces of the museum, right? So in order to talk about the museum, what is our identity, because one of the oldest museum in Pakistan is the Lahore Museum, and Lahore Museum has one of the finest collections about the Gandhara civilization, and I always assert my South Asian identity about my Gandhara civilization because we can see that how it is reflected in our present day patrons. You know, we might not be that much aware of it. For example, how did the pottery evolve, right?
True.
It was passed down from the Gandhara from generations to generations, and now we are still using it. Obviously, now the art is maybe in the danger because of the encroaching consumerism and whatnot, or maybe the ajrak, you know, we would see how the priest that was excavated from their side there, how he's wearing that ajrak in that particular
or probably
style.
all of those instruments which used to exist as well. But having said that, ladies and gentlemen, why we talk about all of these historical artifacts, I think what we really need to talk about over here is that how people are now more inclined towards making, you know, how future museums would look like. I think we have an example in Dubai. I think we saw that building. It's just amazing, you know. So imagine that they're giving you an insight of how life would be in 2080 or 2090 as well.
Wonderful.
But having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I think for the very first time as well, I was just so energetic when I learned about that, you know, who we will be interviewing today as well, because I have never seen such a concept, you know, so far in 10 years of my television career as well, that somebody would come up with. So there's this exhibition, ladies and gentlemen, which is going on, and it is on from the 14th till the 28th of January in Lahore Museum as well. And it says, Becoming the Museum. Now, what is it all about? So imagine they say that we're bridging the engagement between creative practitioners of the museums of Pakistan. How do they do that? I think that's something which we certainly want to ask. And we will be asking somebody who, first of all, happens to be the executive in Community Service Awards, not just that, the recipient of the Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Medal, artistic director of Canadian Community Arts Initiative, and so on and so forth. The list goes on, ladies and gentlemen. We're very lucky that we've been joined by Ms. Asma Mahmood. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. I'm very well. Thank you very
so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here.
So, Ms. Asma, what about the Becoming Museum? And it is obviously, I do not subscribe to this view. Let's deconstruct and decolonize it, because this is the impression that has been held since mid-19th century, that the South Asian visitors are not interested in the pedagogy, rather they're interested in the amusement or just watching it, right? How do you, so how do you view that? And let's focus about, tell us about your project.
This project, I've been working on it since the past 7 years. This project is actually inspired by one which happened in 2000 in Art Gallery of Ontario, AGO, where 4 artists of color for the first time made interventions into the museum.
Right.
It was a project initiated by a British artist, Shutapa Biswas, and facilitated by Shelley Ball.
Okay.
And we made installations in the historical Canadian galleries. The idea was that these museums are hallowed places, especially for us artists. We do not get an opportunity to physically touch anything, of course, but you can always come up with something which is the next step of understanding the artifacts which are lying in the museum.
True.
So, as a result, I produced a sound installation. There is a painting which is a drawing corrected by Bouguereau, and it's hanging in the gallery. It's covered with a cloth, so you have to pull a string and it goes up and you can see the painting, and then you leave it and it comes down. It's an image of a woman.
Okay.
And I first time saw it and I thought that why is it covered? Maybe because she doesn't have enough clothes. But the fact was that it was covered because it was a pencil drawing.
Okay.
It was to protect the pencil work.
Yeah.
So I thought at that time, if I put a sound there, just the way I was curious. So I recorded my dad's sound saying like this. So I put that sound at the back, so you pull it up and suddenly that sound comes. Yes. And then you get scared and you leave it, that maybe I was not supposed to touch it.
Right.
So it was alluding to the male gaze.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of other works, three other artists created those works. And that is when I said that we should do something like this in museums in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, because those museums are static places, even though these are continuous civilizations.
True.
So that idea I discussed with Rashid Rana, who is the Dean of Visual Arts School at Beacon House National University. Rashid is a very old friend of mine. And I discussed it with Salima Hashmi as well.
Okay.
And Salima has very interesting stories to tell you about how the museum collection in Pakistan is, how come the dancing girl, the symbol of Pakistani history, 6,000 years old, ended up in Delhi Museum instead of being in Pakistan. So that was a very interesting dialogue, and then we decided to do this. I came last year with Shelley Ball. We gave a workshop, a training workshop to about 18 artists and curators. We took them to Lahore Museum. We taught them how to conduct research,
Right.
to create contemporary works within museums. And Lahore Museum people were unbelievably cooperative, and they loved the idea. And then I came back. We did everything. All the communication happened through the internet and online. And the students the artists sent us the proposals. We saw the proposals. We approved 7 proposals, and then they started working on it. And on 11th, 12th, and 13th, we installed the works, and 14th it was opened.
Yeah, and it's open till 28th of January as well. So for people who are out there, may you be visiting Lahore, please make sure to take out time and go visit as well. And meanwhile, we are having this conversation. I think I would request my team to please share the images, from the exhibition as well. But very quickly, so because we are saying that, we really need to connect the history and the way people are today. I mean, it's a great effort for people to understand the artifacts from back in the days as well. How do you think that, it will have an impact on the future generations that, hey, you know what, it all belongs to us? I think that's what the entire effort is all about, right?
Gee, I think the very important thing to understand is that there is one thing which is history, and the other thing is our understanding or the propaganda that is created to be taught as history.
True.
The true reading of history makes people gel. It makes people sincere to their lands.
True.
But when we change history, when we change
Forge it.
mold it to suit our political or national interests and all that, then we are actually making people superficial. We are not allowing them to gel with their history, to realize that today the people who do not have facilities, who have open sewages and all that, come from a civilization 6,000 years ago. They had proper sewage lines, they had toilets in every house, they had granaries, they had paved roads in Mohenjo-daro.
True.
And today we don't know anything. Reason being, we have a disconnect with that history. We think that is not our history because we have come from outside apparently. So these were the concerns which made me realize that it is important to get our artists and our communities to look at the museum in a different way, to look at them as a living culture. The Gandhara galleries are still, their people are still living. Those people were the ones who established universities in Julian and in Taxila, and today they deny their daughters and women education.
True.
So what happened? What happened was that we
Disconnect.
said that 1400 years ago you dropped from the sky and you have no connection with these people. So it's important to establish that connection, to tell people that 1400 years before that we were either Hindus or Buddhists or pagans, whatever, and that is also our identity.
True.
Right, right. So you talked about the power asymmetry which we can reflect in the museums, and especially in the field of museology. It is very much reflected, and it's been dissected, right? And you also talked about, like, Indus civilization, that how it taught the world the city planning or the city management, and still we have a lot to learn from our ancestors about it, right?
True.
And I think the Pakistani state is focusing a lot on the newer aspects of the identity that is incorporating the South Asian identity, the Indus Valley, the Gandhara civilization, and we could see in the pavilion, the Dubai Expo Pavilion, that how it was exhibited there, right?
One of the best ones, right?
And one of the best ones pavilion was the Pakistani pavilion, obviously. So let's talk about the imagined communities where we believe that we belong to one particular culture, and I think museums are the best spaces where we can see the reflection of those communities out there. So you talked about the intervention that you wanted to implant, especially when it comes to the Becoming project. Can you talk more about what are those interventions are?
Simple thing.
Right.
The idea of interventions is that you tread very slowly, quietly in the museum space,
Okay.
and put one single item which would change the dynamics of the space.
True.
Okay.
For example, our artist Lulua has put a plate
Okay.
with fresh flowers,
Right.
and there is a sound, very light sound of chanting, and she's put that in Hindu and Jain gallery.
Right.
Just by virtue of having these fresh flowers in that part of the museum, suddenly everything has become alive.
Wow.
Now you know that there is
Right.
some devotional act happening. Those sculptures have suddenly become sculptures who somebody is revering even today.
Wow.
You know, they're not just static in the museum. Then we have an artist, Ali Arshad. What he has done is he got inspired in Gandhara gallery by this beautiful wall relief,
Okay.
and in that they put there is a lotus,
Okay.
and on that is Buddha.
Right.
So what he has done is he carved a lotus shaped bowl, and in that he put a glass bowl with two fish. Now, in the museum where you see all these quiet dead things,
Right.
suddenly there is life. There is a living fish there.
True.
So it has a totally different feeling. People will be inquiring, why is this fish there?
Right.
And that is what is supposed to happen.
True.
Ask questions, be inquisitive.
True.
We are not inquisitive people.
True.
We like to jump to conclusions, but we don't ask questions.
True.
Exactly.
And that's what we want people to do. Then there are this another artist who has projected Pakistan's national anthem with
We're
some
even
graphics.
sharing the images from the exhibition as well, so they're right on our television screens. But please continue, ma'am.
Yeah. So and that she's projecting it behind the sculpture, the big sculpture of Queen Victoria, because it was a centennial, and the British government made these Queen Victoria statues for all its colonies.
Right.
So this was in Lahore,
Okay.
in a very nice place in the middle of Mall, and then she was removed and put in the museum. So right at her back, she has projected Pakistan's national anthem. So it gives you a very interesting way to look at it, that this
Changing
one,
the entire perspective of how you've been
how you look
it.
at the British Empire.
Exactly. But very quickly, because we're running out of time as well, there's one more thing which I wanted to ask you. First things first, obviously, this was one of a kind that I've seen, such an exhibition becoming the museum, first of all, where you're bridging that gap, future generations going back, learning quite a lot. There was a time I still remember when my grandfather was, alhamdulillah, alive, everybody used to have that, inclination towards acquiring art, number one.
Wonderful.
Number two, I would see my, grandmother conversing with some other auntie of the local mohalla, and that too in sher o shairi, they would use poetry in saying whatever, so we were very artistic in nature somewhere, we go back to 1970s and 80s, every house you would go to, you would see poetry over there, or something of that sort which people would do on their own. Why do you think that, people I don't see them quite a lot that there's a bigger population of people who want to acquire art. Rather they would go see, enjoy it and then come back home. Why do you think there's a disconnect? Do you think that there's a disconnect?
They definitely disconnect because we have confused religion with culture.
True.
Culture
I agree
is
to
language. Culture is something which is beyond religion. If your bride wears red dress, Muslim bride, Hindu bride wears red dress as well. That's the culture.
True.
Religion is something which I feel everybody should have a personal. State should not have a religion.
True.
But unfortunately, we have not been able to understand these dichotomies. Artistic values for educated masses, for people who have cultural understanding will always be there. Paintings on the wall in any house add to its beauty,
True.
add to the
Aesthetic.
culture of the house, add to the culture of people. Books. I don't see books in people's homes.
True.
People don't read books.
True.
Yeah.
And for me, that's shocking.
That's
So we are culturally at the point where we do not encourage our children to. Children learn to read when their parents read. When parents read with children, then children learn to appreciate reading.
True.
And reading, there is no other thing like
Alternative.
reading.
True.
You know,
True.
we have rich traditions of poetry. We have rich traditions of art and culture. Those need to be claimed. That these are the. I live in Canada, but we keep alive the traditions. We have some of the finest poets in Urdu language right there in Canada. We have some great artists. Some of the leading Canadian artists are Pakistani artists. Tazeen Qayyum, Faisal Anwar. So these guys are considered Canadian mainstream. So we are talking about Pakistani artists going out, making this huge difference. You were talking about Dubai Expo.
Future Museum.
Rashid Rana made that building.
Wow.
I call it Pangolin building because I think it looks like pangolin. They have some other name for it. But what an accomplishment.
True.
Rashid is an outstanding artist. He's an internationally recognized superman who gives himself, goes and teaches at this university as a dean. But he has a huge profile. So
And we certainly need to learn that as well. And thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you
us.
so
It was
much.
wonderful to have you.
before
over
I
here.
go, I have to
Very
thank
quickly, very
ThinkFest.
quickly. Yes.
ThinkFest, who supported us for this project. Lahore Museum, who were incredible. Mohammed Usman Saab, the new director, was outstanding. CCAI, Canadian Community Arts Initiative, and the Medium School of Arts
Wonderful.
for.
And thank you very much,
Wonderful.
PTV World. Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over
Thank you so
here.
much.
And inshallah, I think I'm visiting Lahore, inshallah, on the 20th as well. So I'm going to join your exhibition with my mother because she'll be traveling with me too as well.
And why not take your daughters
it
there?
sounds interesting because I'll be there for work, so I might not have a lot of time to go around as well. But thank you very much, Haja, for recommending as well. You know,
Thank
because ladies and gentlemen, to be very honest, I think when we speak about this disconnect, I think partially it's us who are actually responsible for that
Right.
too as well. I mean, where she said that you should have taken your daughters, I spoke with my wife that, hey, you know what, would you want to go? She's like, you know, you'll be busy with work. What am I going to do over there? So I
Maybe
was
she
like,
can
okay.
take her to the museum, to the Ajaib Ghar, as
It's
we used to
Lahore.
call it.
It's
Yeah.
Lahore. It's not Islamabad. She does not know the way around. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
What do you mean? Do you know the ways around
Yeah,
in Lahore?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
but come on.
Yes, yes, yeah. I used to live there back ago. So when we talk about the museums, obviously it does not just represents the past, but it also represents how the futures are. And when I went to the this Lok Virsa Museum, I could see the patterns there of, especially in the fabric, which I can still find it today. So it's
Wow.
the best place how we can connect with the past and obviously represent the future. And with that, obviously, we will say Allah Hafiz. Until next time, it's a goodbye and good morning.
Thank you.